Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to continue our range review for the Space Marines, and this time around we are looking at Primaris stuff. Now, I'm not going to cover the stuff that is coming out in 9th, because we've already been through those and, you know, what we think about them, so I will link the video where we covered those in the description down below. I'll make sure it's timestamped so you can go straight to the point. So you can just switch over to that one after you've watched this. There's no point padding this one out to be longer with exactly the same thing that I said last week. That feels a bit... I don't like it. So, we're just going to cover the stuff that is currently available for the Primaris stuff. We're going to start, of course, with the Intercessors. Now, a couple of times I've mentioned that the Intercessors don't quite do it for me because they lack some of the ornamentation and ostentation of the older Space Marine stuff. And a few people rightfully pointed out that, in fairness, the tactical squad doesn't have a lot of that either. And I've realised what I've been doing. When it comes to Space Marine infantry, generally speaking, I will make them look fancy. I will make them look as fancy as possible. I will kit bash the hell out of them. They'll have purity seals all over the place. They'll have nice little symbols and stuff. They will be not what the standard tactical squad looks like, and they most likely will end up looking more like Stern Guard, because I love Stern Guard. They are my favourite. They're great sculpts. There's a great kit. There's so much fancy, just extra stuff going on with them. And what I've been unintentionally doing, my bias towards that particular style has kind of pushed my judgment of the Intercessors askew slightly, because instead of comparing them directly to what they are, they direct opposite / what they're replacing, the tactical squad, they are in line with that. The only thing is that I love my tactical marines to be really over the top, so I'm comparing them not with what you get in another box that they are equivalent to, but what I would do with that other box, which is not fair, because I'm judging these based on not your standard tactical marines. I was judging them based on things like Stern Guard, Vanguard, Vet. They're not meant to be that, and as such they're not going to have a whole load of ostentation around them. So I have reset my expectation again, and to be honest, as Space Marines go, they look decent. They're the right scale, they're the right size, they look better on the tabletop. I'll be totally honest, whenever I see a normal tactical squad on the table now, if there's Primaris Marines anywhere near them, they look even more squat than they already did. In terms of actual true scale Space Marines, I don't think there's really that much to complain about when it comes to the Intercessors, and by extension the Hellblasters. I mean, they're essentially the same, it's just a different weapon and slightly different backpack, of course. They look decent, they look good. That mark of power armor, I think, looks okay. I would like a little bit more detail around the chest here and there, but again, that is something that is down to liking the variation that comes with different marks of power armor, which these guys don't have. Being said, if you want to mess with them, you can. Any other Space Marine helmet fits on them pretty damn well, and so you can still do that bit of personalisation if you like. In terms of things like posability and stuff, obviously not the same, but it's still possible to mess with them a fair bit. I've assembled Intercessors. They're fine. The kit's fine. There's not really a problem with it. It's obviously nicely laid out. I think the way it's laid out is really good on the sprue. They're proper sized Space Marines, and it's hard not to just really appreciate that, because they should be that bit more imposing than they have been in the past. Similar deal with the Hellblasters. Of course, it's just essentially a different gun with the Hellblasters is what you're getting. And so they look decent, just like the Intercessors do. I do like the odd detail on these guys, though, where you've got that kind of... It's those little cylinders on the backpacks that just look a bit Tau. There's obviously a bit of interesting influence going on with some of the weapons on the Primaris stuff, which I have to say I really like. I will say the dude with the eye missing, he at the very least, even though I'm not a massive fan of unhelmeted heads, he at least looks like a badass. He does not care about the fact that he's got some sort of weird automatic there. Looks pretty decent. Also, just in black, I feel like Intercessors and Hellblasters look better. I don't know what it is. Just personal preference, most likely, but they look more imposing somehow. Okay, let's talk about these guys. So, Infiltrators and Encoders. Now, the Infiltrators, I don't mind. There's a few things I'm not massively keen on. I would say I like pretty much everything about them, bar a couple of things. In fact, I'll just say the things I don't like, because you can then extrapolate from that all the things that I do, which is everything but the cutout on the shoulders, which I don't know why has really started to bug me. It just doesn't... I don't know, it looks a bit weird to me. I think it's because you've still got the same join underneath that you have for standard shoulder plates on power armor, where you've still got that kind of square corner sticking out of the cutaway section. I mean, I get it's probably for like more weight reduction than anything else, but it just has a weird silhouette that, I don't know, my eye catches on it and not in a good way. The torsos I quite like. I like the backpacks. I like the heads as well. The helmets are cool. I would prefer not to have antennas on like the helmets and the backpacks. It looks a bit excessive. It looks a bit over the top. But they do still look decent. There's some nice details on there with like the rebreathers on the side and the grill on the front being a slightly different shape. I actually do like the heads a fair bit. Same deal. I mean, the arms are pretty much just... I think they're pretty close to standard, aren't they, the arms? Or are they just a little bit... Oh, you're missing the... I guess you're missing the bit of armour around the forearm there, actually. But the arms I quite like. The lower half of the legs, I just have started to... Again, I just started to dislike a fair bit. It creates a weird silhouette that... If I remember correctly, I quite liked at first, but it's one of those things where it's kind of gone down in my estimation as time has gone on. I don't hate it, necessarily, I just don't like it very much. I feel like if you start from the... When you're looking at the models, if you start from, like, the head and work your way down, the legs make sense. If you see the legs without really taking in anything else, they look strangely angular, and they just look a bit off, but yeah, I can't really 100% describe why, which I know is not helpful. It's just one of those weird feelings that you get sometimes looking at models, don't you, where you're like, I don't know why I don't like that, but I don't really like that. That kind of situation with both the shoulders and the legs on these. However, I will say that in terms of purpose, I think they're pretty good. I like especially models where you look at it and you get a good idea as to what that thing is about just at a glance. I mean, no, with things like Intercessors and Hellblasters, you don't need to stare at them for ages to realise that these are like, you know, they are armoured up, essentially frontline troops. You expect them to be able to take a beating and to be able to hand one out via masses of gunfire. They have an intent. It's the same thing with the Infiltrators. They look like absolutely perfect for recon / lightning fast strike missions behind enemy territory. That's the vibe they give off, which is just as well. Incursors, however, they're just weird, and the more time has gone on since they were released, and the more I've looked at them, the more I just don't like them now. Now, here's a downside. Here's the downside. Maybe it's a downside, maybe it isn't. I've had no interest in these guys at all. I've never bothered to look at the rules. I've never bothered to find out what it is they do that the Infiltrators don't do. It's just not a unit that's interested me. I mean, I've got a stupid Dreadnought army. Well, I don't need infantry for the most part. I at least have an idea as to what everything does, except these, because these have always struck me as just being a bit... They're just weird. The visor... The weird visor scopes on the bolters look so out of place and so clunky. The fact that there's like a visor sight on the gun They've got a visor on the helmets that aren't full helmets, and they've got like a visor sight on the backpack as well. They look festooned with technology that they shouldn't have. It looks more Star Trek than 40k, and they've never struck me as like having that same purpose. They just look weird. They just look like they've got bits from other franchises stuck on them. And I can't even properly tell you what it is that really, really bugs me about them, but I just don't like them. It's one of those models whereby okay, now I'll be honest, I cannot remember what I thought about the Incursors when we first saw them, but I really don't like them now. There is just something about them that does not sit right with me at all. It's one of those annoying just gut feelings where you look at a model and you can't really properly explain why, but it just doesn't do anything for me. It just does not do anything for me. This weird kind of visor sights on the guns look odd and clunky and like they shouldn't be on there. The fact they've got the visor sight on the gun, but then their helmets are also visors. I seem to remember quite liking the helmets having visors, but then now it's like, well, you've got a weird visor on the gun, you've got one on your backpack, and you've got one on your face. Do you need that? What? It just feels so. They feel like they're different purely because they need a second variety for the kit or something. Like, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure that the Infiltrators and Incursors are the same box, aren't they? Let's just check that, because, yeah, Infiltrators or Incursors. This is just like, to me, it looks like they came up with the Infiltrators first, and then they went, well, people need to be able to build something else out of it, so what else are we going to do? And as a result, we got an entire squad that have been equipped with Geordie's visor from Star Trek. And I don't know, I cannot properly articulate why. I just don't like them. Which in a way makes no sense, because it's the same basis for the Reavers and the Infiltrators. And I'm not too keen on the helmets for the Reavers, but the bodies are fine, because they're basically the same as the Infiltrators. So, for the most part, any issue I have with one, I should have with all of them, and vice versa, but the Incursors just don't work for me. They just don't work for me at all. I wish I could work out why. I really do. But it's just not happening. Even if they were... The extent to which I don't like the look of the Incursors, even if someone came to me and said, if you wanted to start doing tournament stuff, I would recommend having 2 squads of those. I would happily lose rather than field those. That's how much I dislike the look of them. I just don't like it at all. It feels so weird to feel that strongly about something that I can't explain why. But I just don't. They just don't do it for me. It happens occasionally. There's just kits that you don't like, and that is very much in that. It's very much in that category. Eliminators, on the other hand, I do like. I do like the Eliminators. I mean, Scout Snipers are the best version of Scouts, sculpt-wise, and these guys are, I mean, they're just snipers. They look good for what they do, I think. The cloaks look decent, the poses are cool. I have to admit, the kind of covering over the backpacks to try and help them blend in a little bit is kind of hilarious, but I at least appreciate the effort, and it does make a nice silhouette. Yeah, the Eliminators look decent. I really do like the rifles they carry as well. Yeah, it's I think this is a decent kit. I think this is a decent kit with good sculpts in it. The in-action one of the guy like sighting, like looking down the sight, is, I think that's my favourite one out of the 3. Unsurprisingly. There's also an interesting little bit of that kind of ornamentation going on with these guys. The kind of papers with the skull at the top they have on the belts is a nice touch. I like that. I think it keeps them grounded in the kind of Space Marine like aesthetic, I guess. Yeah, I do like those. Now, as I said, I'm not a massive fan of the heads on the Reavers, but the rest of the armour is pretty much the same as the Infiltrators and Encoders. It's still got the same, it's the same stuff, just a different head and a lot less gubbins going on with the Reavers. I have seen the heads used to great effect by Dr. Dave on Twitter, who has done some really good Legion of the Damned stuff, and he's used these heads like really effectively. They're still not my thing, but I will concede that you can very much make them look good. If you're not me, I don't think I could make them look good, but there are people who have used them and looked like, I've actually looked at it and gone, that is actually really, really nice. Still not overall my style, but cool things can be done with them. Overall, it's fine. It's an okay looking unit. It's, as I say, all the same issues as Infiltrators. They do look way better than Encoders though, so I will give them that. Next up we have the Aggressors, which I like and dislike. There are some really cool things about these guys. Firstly, the armour itself I really like. I really like the Gravis armour. It looks great. Super chunky, super heavy looking. They have this proper sensation of weight and just that kind of unstoppable look to them, which I really, really like. Also, the missile launchers behind the heads, I do like that as well. The thing that I'm not too keen on is the weapons being built into the gauntlets. That's something that I used to really, really like, but I've slowly kind of gone the other way, where I much prefer them holding weapons to having them built into the hands. And the Aggressors are a good example of this. For me, the weapons being built into the kind of back and side of the gauntlets kind of lends them this weird extra weight, I think is the only way I can really phrase it. It's making him look way wider and way heavier than he actually is. If he was holding the guns in his fists as opposed to having them built into the gauntlets, the model wouldn't be quite as wide. At the moment it's nearly as wide as it is tall, but it's not really, because it's just the arms and it's just the guns. And it kind of lends a bit of an off-balance look to it. It presents a weird silhouette where they kind of look a bit like I don't even know what. It just throws it off slightly. It reduces the kind of... For me, it reduces the height of them by making them look wide. Because they're tall models. I mean, they're Primaris, so of course they're tall. But that extra width makes them look shorter than they actually are, which... it's just I think it's just like a trick of perspective that's given by the guns on the gauntlets, but I'd much prefer them to be holding them. And having put some of these together, I don't even know where I'd start doing that. I mean, well, I say that I would just not have the guns attached to the gauntlets. I would file down, cut away the top of the armour which goes around the barrel of the gun, and I would just give them a storm bolter in each hand, probably. But that would be not exactly what they have, and it would still leave the gauntlet a bit misshapen and weird. You'd have to mess about with green stuff and... Yeah, you'd have to mess about with green stuff and, sculpt it back over. It's a lot of effort. Yeah, overall I like the armour, and I like the kind of attitude of it. It spoils a little bit for me by having the guns attached to the gauntlets themselves. A good counterpoint to that is the Inceptors. The Inceptors have got pretty beefy, chunky weapons, but they're held in their fists, and obviously the overall setup is different. These guys have got the jump axe on the back, And so then that is like, it's not really the same, but it feels like they're not quite as wide just because of that. I know there's a bit of like dislike for things like the kind of weird skis on the feet, but I kind of like that detail, to be honest. Yeah, I kind of like it. Adds an extra element of difference to them for me. Now, I have to admit, I was surprised to find out you still can't get the suppressors separately. I really thought that you could. You can get the Infiltrators and the Eliminators, so I just assumed, well, clearly, suppressors you'll be able to get. Searched for them on the site, nothing came up. And from what I can see, they only show up here. Although I will say the Repulsor Executioner also just isn't in the Space Marine section on the site, which is kind of rubbish, and neither of the Reavers, come to think of it. You have to search for those, which is not ideal. But yeah, the suppressors, they're okay. They're okay. I think, on balance now, having seen quite a few conversions that people have done to reduce the length of the gun barrels, the guns do look way too long. They look too unwieldy and clumsy and weighty, and yeah, with the kind of stripped down nature of the armor compared to, say, the Inceptors, they just don't quite look like they'd be able to land in any sort of graceful fashion carrying that thing, especially since the backpacks are very different. But I have seen quite a lot of people who have shortened the guns considerably, which has made the model as a whole look a lot better. I still quite like the concept of it. I still think it looks okay, but it's definitely one that I think can be improved with a bit of careful cutting here and there. Overall, not terrible. Not one of my favourites, but it's okay. Okay, let's get controversial again. I know that loads of you don't like the Invictor. I know you don't, and I conceded when we first saw it that it is not really a Space Marine thing. I know it's not very Space Marine. I still love it, but then I've got like 4,000 points worth of Dreadnoughts. So what else would you expect? Would you expect me to not like it? No, you wouldn't. You'd be surprised if I didn't. I will still happily say that it doesn't. I still don't really think it fits Space Marines all that well, but I do like the model. I do like the model a lot. The fact that it's got the separate gun on one hip, I really like. The kind of stripped down nature of it again is fun, and it's, to me, it looks cool. That, and you can easily adapt this. You could easily turn it into more of a Dreadnought than anything else. Bit of plasticard over the front, covering that roll cage, and you're set. You're away. But I totally understand like why you wouldn't like it. I totally get it, but I do. I just do. It just reminds me of, it just reminds me of those things from the Matrix. Second Matrix? Third Matrix? Second Matrix? Whichever one of the trilogy it was where they had Zion being attacked. And there was a bunch of those ridiculous mechs firing into the ceiling. It reminds me of that very heavily, and I like it because of it. Now, the Redemptor, of course, I don't like these. Not very good. No, let's move on. That's a lie. That's a lie. I've got 8 of these now? Yeah, I've got 8 Redemptors currently. That is ludicrous. Why have I got 8 Redemptors? But I have. I've got 8 of them. I like them a lot. The full fat version, this one, is so much more poseable than it looks on this picture, because it looks like you can't pose it for nothing in this image. Rubbish standard pose they've given it there. You can do... In fact, why would you have that as your standard picture when that clearly shows it so much better? Come on. They literally picked the old man standing with his beer gut out pose for the main advert. Use that one. It looks way more imposing. So yeah, it's a really good kit. I can say without any shadow of a doubt that I think it's a really, really easy kit to put together, that you can pose it to your heart's desire, you can modify it really easily. I like just the standard version of it. I like how easy it is to kit bash and convert with it. If there is one kit out of all of these, like out of all the range reviews as a whole, if there is one model that you're going to take my word for it, that it's a good kit, this is the one. I've assembled how many? 5 full fat ones and 3 easy to build ones. The easy to build ones are actually really decent. Nowhere near as posable, funnily enough, but then again, they are easy to build. They're also very cheap for what you get, which is nice. The easy to build ones are really decent. This one is, I love it. I really, really love it. It's just a great model. It's just a great model. But you wouldn't expect anything else from me, would you? For for a Redemptor, you would not expect anything else other than for me to say that I really like it. You'd be shocked if I said anything else. In fact, let's have a quick look and see what other people have done. That's decent. That's nice. Oh, I like the inclusion of the Space Wolf stuff there. That's nice. Also, he's raised the front section of the armor up, which gives it a more kind of up armored approach. Excellent work. Excellent work. Nice bit of Black Templar action. Yeah, see, a few people have done what I do here. God, that's a beautiful sight. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, look at it. Amazing. Loving your work. Loving your work with your 3 Redemptors there. Quality. So that's 2 full and 1 easy to build on the end, I'm assuming? Oh, no, maybe they are. No, maybe they are all full. Yeah, this little gap at the front, where the armour has not been placed all the way down, that is a really, really good way to decrease the kind of... to like decrease the beer gut approach that a lot of people don't like for this model. You can like adjust it so that it looks more heavily armoured by raising that section of the armour at the front. I'll put a picture in the video of the one where I've done that, because it makes a difference. It increases it in a nice way. Yeah, it just makes it look a bit heavier and a bit less fat, to be honest. But yeah, Redemptor class. Okay, look, we're gonna have to talk about the Impulsor now. I'm sorry to have to do this to you again, because if you've been around for a while, you already know my opinion on this thing. I still hate it. I'll be totally honest with you. I'll be real. I hate this vehicle. I do not like it. I cannot like it. I want to like it. I don't like not liking stuff. Disliking things is fine, but it's not a habit that I want to get into, you know? But this thing just... I just don't get it. I just don't understand why it is the way it is. Firstly, open top transports are fine, whatever, but the fact that there's like 2 different widths to this thing bugs the hell out of me. The engines on the back sticking out the side looks weird no matter what angle I look at it from. The kind of the grav plates being higher up at the back than they are at the front gets on my nerves, even though that is something that that's on the Repulsor. The Repulsor has that, but it doesn't bother me anywhere near as much on the Repulsor. I think it's because that, to me, that looks sturdy. That looks sturdy. It looks dependable. It's got a hint of Land Raider about it with the kind of shape of the front, and it's it's covered in weapons, not in as nice or as pleasing a fashion as Land Raider is covered in weapons. The superior marine vehicle of choice, obviously, but there's something about that says tough. That says it's got that Imperium stamp. That Imperium stamp of dependable and solid. Even the humble Rhino, small though it is, looks solid and dependable. Like the Predator looks dependable tank. The Vindicator looks like a real chunk. Even though it's just a Rhino with a big gun on the inside of it, it looks sturdy. That does not look sturdy to me. It looks flimsy. The back of it looks weak. There's all these weird, annoying inconsistencies as well. Like, the fact that the turret on the back is not in the centre. It's not only not in the centre, but it's also not even centred behind the other like cupola that's at the front. It doesn't matter where you put that thing either. It's either going to be shooting someone in the back of the head or bonking them on the noggin, or it's going to be incapable of firing off to the left because you've got another heavy stubber sticking out at the top there. It's just... This feels like a compromise vehicle that doesn't look like it can do anything. It doesn't look like it could perform as a decent tank. It doesn't look like it could perform as a decent transport. It just looks flimsy. Flimsy and weird. And not in the classic Imperium, I don't know how that functions, but it's cool way. It just doesn't look good to me. And I've realised that is going to be an unpopular thing to say, but I've already said it once, and I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's great when I actually think it looks garbage. But of all the stuff in this range, that's like the only thing I truly hate, so it's not too bad. The actual Repulsor and the Repulsor Executioner, both of them, they look okay. They look okay. They're still not... I don't think I'll ever like them as much as I like my classic... Just my old faithful Land Raider. They cannot replace that vehicle for me. They don't have the same kind of pleasing look to them for me, but they look alright. They look okay. I will say I think the Executioner looks, for me, better than just the Repulsor. The gun placement, again, is a bit silly, but then again, it's 40k. Yeah, I definitely prefer the Executioner to the standard one, but they just don't look as good as a Land Raider, which is my gold standard. The Land Raider is my gold standard for tracked vehicles because it just looks immense. It just looks like a proper, solid... I was going to say unmovable. It only moves when it wants to. It just looks like it's just such a good tank. A proper classic. And with, the Repulsor's been around for a bit, and it's grown on me a bit, but... Yeah, it just doesn't quite scratch the itch. Now we get on to some characters. Or some HQs, or some... whatever you want to call them. The Apothecary, I do quite like the Apothecary. That is a cool looking model. It's a nice update from the old Apothecaries. The thing I'm not sure about is him standing on his mate's chest. I know that's a common complaint. It just looks a bit weird. Bit harsh. There's no need for that. But overall, I think it's decent. There's a good amount of iconography. The robo at the top is a nice touch. Yeah, the kind of equipment coming out of his backpack looks decent as well. It's overall a decent model. Next we've got the Librarian in Phobos armor, which this is a cool model. This is a really cool model. A lot of it is helped by the camo robe, the camo cloak he's got on. I think that's a decent pose. The overall silhouette of the model is really, really good. The fact that the sword has still got like the classic Librarian kind of gilding on the blade is really nice. It works well. I think it works really well. It looks... There's a lot of personality to this model. There's a lot of personality to it. And having the half helmet on for this, I think works super well. Yeah, it's decent. It's decent, that Librarian. I have to admit, I much prefer the Librarian in Phobos armor to just the Librarian epistolary. I can't stand that word. I can't say it. I couldn't even really tell you why. I mean, this one has got a good amount of a good amount of decoration, ornamentation on it. I love the book with the lock on it. That's a very nice touch. The symbol over the head on the psychic hood is really cool. Good number of purity seals on him as well. Clearly been doing his duty, the lad. But yeah, for some reason it just doesn't have quite as much personality to me as him. They're obviously, I think, if I remember correctly, the Librarian in Phobos Armor has got access to different abilities, but yeah, it's just looks decent, but the other one is just more pleasing to me, more pleasing to the eye. The Lieutenant in Phobos Armor is fine. The jumping off, this is one of those models that's got a weird base where he's jumping off something or he's jumped on something. It's kind of hard to tell because the angles are all off. It's something Maka from the Outer Circles talked about a fair bit, where there are just some models where you look at it and you're like, okay, well, how did he get there to pull that pose? Did he step backwards and he's leaping off it? Did he jump onto it from in front of it? And if so, how did he do that? It's just a bit weird. It's one of those things where I didn't mind the first time, and I don't think it really bothered me. And then I looked at the model and was properly examining it at some point, and kind of went, that pose doesn't make a huge amount of sense. And once I saw it, that was it. That was it. That was just that was the only thing I could see, which I hate it when that happens. But overall, I think it looks pretty decent. It's just the pose is a little bit weird. Be a bit hard to adjust as well. Love the Primaris Chaplain. My only complaint is that his pimp cane isn't a proper Crozius, but that's something you can change if you want to. Yeah, I really like this guy. I really like it. The big old iron halo coming off the backpack's really cool. There's some nice detail on one of the shoulder pads. The coat is a really nice touch. I mean, it obviously looks very Reaper from Overwatch, but I also like the kind of contouring on the leg as well of the shin armor there. Looks cool. And the helm is really nicely done. It being hidden under the cloak is a nice touch as well. Yeah, that is a decent model to me. I've put a couple of those together now, for various purposes, and I've enjoyed building and painting pretty much every single one. That looks promising. Oh, that's nice. That's nicely done. Has anyone managed to get yeah, there, perfect example. Just replacing that, just giving it a Crozius at the top. Makes a huge difference, I think. I do like that. I think it just adds a little extra character to it. Well done, you. Okay. The Captain in Phobos Armor. I actually quite like this one. This one's okay. Doing a bit of the old hero pose, a bit of stand and point, but it's not massively over the top. Gives someone a real talking to as well, let's be honest. Now, we are not allowed to turn this one around, unfortunately. Yeah, I think that's pretty decent. I always like a servo skull. The addition of a servo skull is always welcome. Servo skulls are quality. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Yeah, that's decent. That is decent. I actually quite like the head as well. Shocking. The just normal captain is, I think, pretty good. The pose is a little... I don't know. I think I do like the pose. I think the only thing I don't like about the pose is that because you can't change it, they all look the same. They all have exactly the same kind of look to them. Adding a bit of extra scenery under the foot that's raised does a lot for this model, because it looks a little bit like he's just placing his toe on it, which is a bit weird. But as a leader of your forces go, I think it's pretty good. And of course, the classic lieutenant with power sword. Can't go wrong with another Primaris lieutenant. Actually, quite a good basis for a conversion for a captain. This guy. If you want a slightly different pose for your captain, you can shop around for bits and make quite a decent model out of it. Now, it should be noted, don't hold it against him just because he was the first lieutenant. That's no reason to dislike the lad. It's not his fault. that there are now 8 million of them. He didn't start it, so, you know, just appreciate him for what he is. Don't hold it against him, you know. And let's go back to the Redemptor, because the Redemptor's quality. We all love a Redemptor. That is the Primaris side of the Space Marine range, and yeah, there's a lot of them, and there's going to be more. Oh my god. The Space Marine range is now so absurdly massive, and it's just getting worse. Luckily, there are some really good models in there, so it's not all bad, but yeah, the Primaris stuff for me is pretty hit and miss in some respects, and it's very difficult not to compare it to the standard line, to the Firstborn line, I guess. And there's certain comparisons which I can't help but draw that do not end up looking favourable for the Primaris stuff. Things like the Repulsor, comparing it to the Land Raider is hard not to do, and the fact is I like the Land Raider a hell of a lot more than I like the Repulsor, and it's all stuff like that. But honestly, when it comes to true scale Marines, I think Games Workshop have done a decent job overall. You know, if we take a step back from the lore side of things and look at the models, I think for a lot of it's pretty decent. Anyway, that is the Primaris half of the Space Marine range. Let me know what you think of all of that in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video subscribe, all that stuff. And there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you would like to. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.